So my name is Whit Downing, and I'm the program coordinator for the Kansas Council on Developmental Disabilities. I love my job so much. I'm also a self-advocate, diagnosed with both autism and depression, and I just started working for the council this year, and I've already been to DC 3 times.
All right. Go ahead. You got the mic. All right. Hey, so from earlier, Solomon Parker, excited to be here.
Julie Hocker, and a little bit more about, about my previous job, but I didn't share too much about what I do now. I'm in the private sector, and I work with leads of federal and state agencies on rare diseases and disability policy and program implementation. So part of what I get to do is come around the country and meet with great folks like you all, hear about the innovative and transformative things that you're doing, and sometimes walk alongside of you for a short season or a longer time, depending on how quickly we get moving. So, did you want a reflection from the day?
Yes. Thank you for remembering.
Yeah. No worries. I try to remember the two-parters. So one thing that was striking me as I was listening to some of the panels, I was really thinking about both the roles that I've had and myself as an employee and as a manager and as a leader in my day-to-day, and thinking about it from sort of both positions as I listened to all of our great speakers today. And one thing that I would encourage each of us, we talk so often at national and state conversations about formal structures, about what's missing, what's working well, programs, supports, financial resources, programs that you can go to, policies that need to pass, right? We talk about all of those things. I want to remind everybody, whether you're someone with a disability who aspires to work, plans to work, or is working and growing a career, or if you are someone who is a part of the ecosystem that makes that work, whether you're an employer or someone who works through the supports and training side of the house, there's also a human element to the success of every single person with a disability who works and works successfully. And I think we sometimes often forget that part. And so I wanted to sort of leave a thought for you today. If you are a person with a disability growing a career, I encourage you to have informal supports just as much as you have formal ones. Who are the people who are in your life who are asking the tough questions? Who are challenging you, who are pushing you to have bigger plans, who are talking to you when you're having a bad day so you get up and go back to work the next morning, who check to make sure that you're still going to your doctor appointments and your community supports and all of those good things. And if you're someone on the other side, a part of the infrastructure, asking yourself, how can you informally be a champion to people with disabilities in the workforce? Whether that's just checking in and being a comfort and confidential listening ear, we all need that, particularly people with disabilities, or whether or not you're championing in your community, in your off hours, or just having really great and thoughtful conversations in your workplaces.
Excellent.
What's the question?
Your takeaways from the day, or what do you want the audience to walk away with today? I know you have some incredible experiences, and go with what you feel called to share at this point. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I want to share a little bit just about as an autistic person, what working how it has changed my life. Because I feel like that's what today was all about, having competitive integrative employment as an option for people with developmental disabilities. Because before I started working for the Kansas Council on Developmental Disabilities, which I love, dream job, already got it, and before that, I had never worked more than like 9-10 hours a week, and now I'm working 20 hours a week, and now I'm, I want to go full time. I'm dreaming big. Part of that we were talking about earlier, you lose what I have learned working is it's been a very hard system to navigate because, Social Security, like I have all of these services like my Social Security, my housing, job coaching, PCAs that are with me every day, stuff like that. I'm like, well, if I work full time and if I make money, which is what I want to do, am I going to lose all of that? So I'm really thankful that I have this job and that Sarah is my boss, and she knows what she's doing. She can help me, navigate that system. But I want to share a little bit about personally what working means to me, because I never thought I would be able to work like this. Before, like, just honestly, over 2 years ago, I survived a suicide attempt, and that was a very low point in my life. Well, I was in D.C. earlier this year, sitting in Senator Roger Marshall's office, right? Yeah. And I was sharing my story with him, and he said, Whit, what got you from maybe your lowest point to working at your dream job, sitting across the table from me? And I said, I found my purpose and I have a meaningful life. I know that my work makes a difference, and that's what I want for everybody with IDD. Because my friends, I consider myself lucky. Not everyone is so lucky because, it's just, I have opportunities and I take them, but I've also have had great support and family and mentors and job coaching and PCAs and all of that. Not everyone is so lucky, so I really do dream of a world where everyone can thrive like me.
I gotta follow this.
I know.
Dang.
I know, right?
No, this is awesome. And I think for those who know me personally, they'll tell you I'm a soft batch cookie. And today I can't stop smiling because really this was born out of an idea and a charge. And I shared this last night with a group. So about a year ago, a couple of us had went to DC to a session similar to this hosted by Easter Seals and along with Delta and Voya Financial. And Roberta Mather with the U.S. Department of Labor gave a charge to people in the room. And she said, how can you be a change agent? And as a change agent, you could think of what you could do and walking away from there and impact your corporations, your companies or whatever. And my immediate thought was, let me get some power players together. So with Ashlea, with Bob, with Sarah, and we just sat down and had an idea storm. And we figured out what can we do, but also look around this room. You all also now power players too, because you're brought into this room as a result of social capital. And Bob hit on it earlier of each of us are connected by some way. So imagine if the power of each person in this room, what you can take away with and what you can do to impact change. Dan mentioned about just the power of the voice of advocating for $400,000. That $400,000 had an ROI of $1.5 million. Whoa. That in itself just shows you the power that could happen. Now imagine Dan communicating with Nan. I just wanted that to rhyme, sorry. But also imagine what that is now if it's partnering with SAC. What if it's partnering with the DD Council? You're bringing in CSAVR. You're partnering with Diego. You're partnering with Sunshine back there, small business development. There's a lot of different ways that people can bring and come together. And so what I'm taking away is something I also referenced as well last night at dinner. Today, we're sharing stories. We're hearing the testimonies of a Whit who, thank you for mentioning your experience, because that to me is extremely powerful. And I can't imagine where you're going to be 2 years from now. So I can't wait to see from afar in my desk in Kentucky, watching you grow and go. But we're sharing today to shape tomorrow. And so this should not be the last convened session to celebrate Indeem. And I do think the nation's eyes are going to be on what's happening here today, especially as many of us will go to our LinkedIns, we'll post that we're here and, definitely tag me, mention us or whatever. But, I do think that there's that charge of you had this today, now what?
All right. So, Julie, do you want to add anything?
I'll answer the next question.
Perfect.
I'll ask Julie a question if that's okay. I'm interested. So you've heard a lot today about the state of Kansas and other states around. I've heard some people from Missouri, for example, mention similar to Kansas that they're also looking at how to promote competitive integrated employment. And so what would you say is on the horizon for states as they're really looking to enter into this phase of supporting individuals with achieving competitive integrated employment outcomes? And with that, where do you see as overall federal, where are we heading to as a nation?
That's an easy question. Yeah. All right, so I'll break it down into two pieces. I think, every state that I visit has a separate set of challenges and a separate set of priorities, no doubt. But you share many things in common, and that's really creating an ecosystem that fuels itself, right? It has the right job training, the right supports, the right investments. It has the right pathways to economic mobility, and it certainly has enough HCBS waivers. That is probably the first thing that every person in the country talks about when it comes to employment. When I was in my last job, and I was at HHS, so we talked about this a lot, I often reminded people who were less familiar with the barriers to employment for people with disabilities. We're often asking people to make trade-offs if we were asking them to choose between a waiver and work, between safe personal care each day or going to work, and which one would you choose? And if you ask somebody that question in America, no matter where you are, you get the same answer. So where do I think that states are going? I think every state is on its own trajectory to a large extent, but what they all have in common is everyone is tackling the waivers, and everyone wants to know what's after 14C closures. How are we innovative? I'm working with another state right now on the question of whether or not some of our programs follow people for long enough periods, that once they're in a job, it isn't like we get to close the case. But in a lot of instances, we're forced to close the case for lack of a better way of describing that, right? You had a job, you still had it in 6 months. You had a job, and a year from now, you were still employed or you are employed. Great, we can keep moving on. It turns out some challenges come up in years 2 and 3 and 4 as people kind of age and their services, those formal supports begin to kind of fall off. So I think that's a challenge that I'm working with a couple of states on. Is how do we make programs that are more durable and longer serving and supportive so that they're catching people and re-engaging them if they naturally leave the labor market for a period of time. You asked about the federal side as well, which is candidly where I've spent more of my time. And I think we have to tackle a couple of things, right? Some of you in this room have even talked to me in the last 24 hours about modernizing some of our programs. A lot of the programs that we're talking about today were born out of people coming out of institutions. So they are there as the first step after living in an institution for 20 or 30 years. Well, almost everybody in this room, if not everybody in this room, has lived a life free of an institution their entire lives. But they're depending on programs that have sort of been piecemealed together on the premise that you lived in an institution for some period of time or lived in a family where that was the expectation. And so one of the things we need to look at is why the system collectively doesn't work as an ecosystem. The other thing that we talk a lot about in Washington, and we were talking about this when I was in the administration quite a bit with Social Security, labor, and education and HHS, was really cracking the code on financial supports. I love able accounts. Every time Sarah says that I have to go to the Hill to talk about able accounts, I stop what I'm doing and I go. I'm a huge fan, but there's more to it than just removing some of those income barriers. We have to really find a way so that every time someone makes more money, every time someone like our friend Whit can go from 20 hours to 40 hours, she doesn't fear losing the supports that she needs. That making money is always better, right? That's how our tax system works. That's how our disability employment programs should work too. So I think those are the things that a next round of leaders in Washington are going to tackle. And I hope they tackle them, number one, with vigor and without apology. And I hope that they come and visit states and they get out of the Beltway and they visit with people like you all who actually can see exactly how to solve those problems.
Excellent. I think that transitions us perfectly of Bob was talking about earlier of it's not usually a disinterest of wanting to hire people with disabilities. It's the how. How do I go about it? Because it's new. And new sometimes means different or uncomfortable, but not bad. It just means it's uncomfortable because we haven't done it before. So what are the things, what are the takeaways of today? One, if you're a company, hire people, right? And hire really good people. But two, diversify your supply chains. You heard about so many companies that are disability owned today that you could be partnering with, that you prioritize those relationships and promote their businesses. Additionally, utilize tools like Disclo. They're the TurboTax of the accommodations process. Protecting or covering your rear end as the employer, but also providing the safety for the individual to feel comfortable in disclosing, for asking what they need. Walk away asking, if you have employees, if you have people who report to you, what do you need to be successful on the job? Disability or not, what do you need to be successful? And that comes with the responsibility of knowing what is it that you need to be successful in the workplace. That stories matter. Contact your policy makers because policy directly impacts this work, your access to a workforce, as well as our service delivery system as well, which is also facing a workforce crisis. And I'm just going to leave you with this thought of today's message and don't miss it, because disability is innovation. The creativity and adaptability needed to navigate inaccessible spaces and places are precisely the skills that businesses need to solve their workforce challenges today.